Buck the Movie Buck back here again for the 96th Academy Awards Oscars. I'm going to go over the nominations today and my predictions as I did a year ago when Everything, Everywhere, All at Once won. And that was what I predicted to win and the one I wanted to win, quite frankly. I thought I'd kick it off this year with one of my all-time favorite movies as a recommendation, and that's Jim Jarmusch, Down by Law. If you haven't seen this, it's excellent. If you have seen it, get the Criterion Collection or try to find, which I don't think you'll be able to, the different interviews with the actors like Roberto Benigni in it. And he called them up on the anniversary and went over what they thought about the film without them knowing they were being recorded. Genius. So Jarmusch. But let's get back to the 2020s and out of the 1980s. Let's look at the Best Picture nominations. And I will... I'll go over them alphabetically, and then I'll talk about who I think will win and why. We have American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. I've been telling people these movies, and I still forget them now that there are 10 possible nominees, in the running to win Best Picture. But let's start with A, American Fiction. A to Z, Zone of Interest. Yeah, A, American Fiction. Saw it last, even though it's the first one I mentioned. And I went into it reluctantly. It was really my wife and son's idea to see it. And it was midweek, and I have other commitments, as do they. But we decided to go for it, and we streamed it at home. That being said, we have a 75-inch Sony TV with Sony Tower subwoofers sound system. So when we watch movies at home, we watch them seriously. We have cinema etiquette, and we especially treat these Oscar nominees with that. It was the one I think after seeing I liked most. Maybe even while seeing that. I really think as I saw this and within 5 minutes, I thought, whoa, this movie's on to something. Oh my. Is this the movie I'm watching? And I don't even really need to spoil too much on this. I'll just tell you what I came away thinking it was about, or at least the protagonist's character. And that was, he's anti-cancel culture. However, upon saying that the next day on the way to school to drop my kids off, my son said, I really think it's more than that. That is his character, but it's about stereotypes. And this movie just delivers a critique and commentary on that, and one of the most creative ways I've seen in a while. I mean, probably since in terms of the screenplay, which it's nominated for and better win, I just don't see for the life of me how this cannot win Best Original Screenplay. I wasn't a fan of last year's Best Original Screenplay, Women Talking. I saw the movie, couldn't have drug on. If you watch my last year's video, you'll see what I thought about that. But this year, this nominated for Best Original Screenplay better win. It's so creative. It's in a way like Spike Jonze, from back in his days of being John Malkovich and Adaptation, which was really Charlie Kaufman, right, who wrote those movies. So get out there and see it if you haven't. Even if it doesn't win, which I think it will and should, definitely see it. It's a major contender, and it's one of my favorites. And while I saw it last and wasn't really thinking it would affect me the way it did, I finished it thinking that's the one. Okay. I'll be honest, before I get to it, Oppenheimer, that was the one I really, since last year when I saw it at a 3 p.m. matinee showing because I didn't want to be tired or fall asleep. I still, even up to last week, was thinking Oppenheimer is one of the best films I've seen all year. And as a nominee, should be one that wins. My heart goes out to Chris Nolan if he doesn't get it again, and to one of these other fantastic movies. Anatomy of a Fall, incredible story. Again, it's an amazing movie. It's acting is superb. I'm curious to see. It's interesting now that movies in other languages other than English are in the running for Best Pictures, right? We started to see this happen in the last decade, and even one win like Parasite, which is phenomenal. I think I'm going to show that to my kids this week because one of the other films nominated is Past Lives, a Korean film. But for me, and growing up and watching the Oscars in my lifetime, it was really, if it wasn't in English, the movie would be considered a foreign film, right? And there's some good ones this year nominated for Best Foreign Film. But Anatomy of a Fall is in 3 languages, German, French, and English. And I actually really honor how well it was done. I enjoyed it. It was tasteful. And the dialogue is so natural and real. There's even a particular scene in that movie where it's really kind of a solid one-shot take where the actors have to deliver their parts in a fashion with no cuts, no second chances, right? Much the way I do these videos right here. I really just get on here and flood my thoughts and share them with you. So I don't think it will win Best Picture. You never know. I'm not on the Academy. I don't get to decide, but I really, as I said before, I think it's going to be American Fiction this year. Moving on. Barbie. Great film, great commentary on society. I saw that actually in South America in English while subtitled. Gosling, Margot Robbie, they were great. It just, at least for me, wasn't the movie that resonated with me. And I get what it's trying to say. Every time I say this, my daughter really gives me a hard time. Thinks I need to see it again, which I'm going to, but I'm just going to kind of brush over that one. We shall see if it wins other Oscars for which it's nominated, but I don't see it as the Best Picture winner. The Holdovers. Wow. Went into this one thinking one thing, blown away by the story. I could see that this one might steal the best original screenplay from American Fiction, but I hope it won't. I don't see it as creative as American Fiction, and I think the Academy likes that at times. That creative aspect of narrative and dimensional storytelling. Although the Holdovers was a very poignant and film that made you feel you're watching something like Harold and Maude, from the 70s. They accomplished that with the cinematography. They accomplished that with the acting and the feel and look of the pick, but of the flick. But I really don't. I don't see it winning. I'm going to go back again, as I did last year with Everything Everywhere All at Once, to American Fiction. I'm sold on that one now. Killers of Flower Moon. This is where you have the wild card, right? And the Oscar nominations and Academy Awards, because you got a Scorsese film. And, your heart goes out to all of those having to go up against Martin Scorsese, which is one of my favorite directors. I mean, obviously, he's the other. But if I had to pick like 2 of my favorite flicks of all time, and I would definitely say out of the 70s, the 2 best films I think ever made in the 70s, my favorites, are Clockwork Orange and Taxi Driver, which have similar I think allegories and comments they're making in terms of film and society. Both of those films coming out in the 70s. But to go up against Martin Scorsese, it's a wild card. You just don't know. It was a good movie. It was another long one. And it was beautiful. I think it's a story that needs to be told. I think that history should be known, and it's well done. But I actually think Martin Scorsese has made other films, not just Clockwork Orange, that are better than this one. I've had people think this is the best film of his career. I would argue not so. Okay. Moving on, Maestro. Wow. In a way, Bradley Cooper directing this, protagonizing it as Leonard Bernstein. This could be almost like another wild card. While it's this historic kind of biopic, it's so well done. He's so amazing in the role. I mean, I would dare say he could walk away with the Best Actor award. This is the best Oscar goes to for actor Bradley Cooper. I don't know necessarily in terms of as the best pick, but then again, I think the Academy also sometimes leans towards stories told about themselves, and he did so much music in terms of theater and film that likely they might have a certain reverence for this film, right? So we shall see. That could be another wild card to say. Oppenheimer. Oh my God. Most of all my viewing out of these 10 films, I kept going back, even till last week when I saw American Fiction, that Oppenheimer was the winner. And in a way, it might be something subconsciously or even consciously that I want to happen. I don't think it's a coincidence that Chris Nolan comes out with this film about Oppenheimer when we're in one of the most unpredictable times in society and tumultuous times, and what we're facing as an existential threat. And much like Oppenheimer and nuclear energy and the atomic bomb was an existential threat, it is no coincidence that we use this term Oppenheimer moment currently for things of artificial intelligence. In the last year, we've seen what these language models like ChatGPT can do, as well as now this year, OpenAI Sora, that is text speech to video. And, you could say, create a video about an alpaca, cartoony alpaca that's in the Andes, but has a bunny friend, and they're looking at a pumpkin, and it will literally animate that in seconds to the quality of DreamWorks or Pixar, it looks like. But you could do something else, show me a video of the Incans and Tupac Amaru in pre-Columbian times in a battle, or one of the OpenAI Sora's text speech to video was like the gold rush, right? And so one day it might not be me. It might just have a goofy looking guy doing his review of the Oscar nominations, and people are looking at somebody going over all that. That's not even real, a deep fake, right? So Oppenheimer is spot on. Chris Nolan is spot on to come out with Oppenheimer at this moment in time. I don't think that's a coincidence. It is an allegory for where we were during World War II with the nuclear energy and atomic bomb. But I would say I could see Chris Nolan not pulling through again with an Oscar Best Picture nomination, much like when The Curious Case of Benjamin Button came out, right? He didn't win for that, and I thought that's one of my all-time favorite Chris Nolan films, actually, with Brad Pitt. But this was fantastic. Cillian Murphy, wow, hats off. I know Emily Blunt has a nomination, and I think she's one of the more overlooked actresses that are nominated this year for her role. But it was really phenomenal, and the movie. I've given you what the allegory is. I've spoken to you what I think about it. Was something so phenomenal to see in my lifetime, and then later on visit one of the decommissioned Peacekeeper missile sites. I did that. I made a field trip to go and see that with my child, and went 50 feet underground, saw how previously a nuclear missile would have been detonated, and a massive one that would be totally destructive. It's why they were decommissioned in the early 2000s. I think it was 2001. They showed in the museum and on this site that is visitable if you come at the right time of year in the United States, and look for the information on it, and be able to go do a tour of it. George W. Bush signed a treaty that would decommission these, and it's an amazing thing to see. And I saw that site probably a month after seeing Oppenheimer, so it was really impactful, on the psyche. What I would say is, half a century of accords, treaties, decommissioning, collaboration internationally, right? Bipartisan wise, and to get nuclear weapons regulated, decommissioned in a way in which we have not destroyed ourselves yet. We don't have that time with artificial intelligence. And so while this isn't a video on artificial intelligence, maybe I'll do that one day, because I do nerd out on a lot of blogs and vlogs and interviews done with some of the leaders in the field. And it's probably the most existential threat to our civilization currently. And nobody is really treating it that way. Everybody's racing towards it and blindly kind of putting their faith in it. Sounds something like Oppenheimer. Yeah, we justify it, right? Okay. Moving on. Past lives. Wow. That made me cry, actually, at the very end. I held it together. It was so wonderfully done, so tasty, so beautifully, so romantically done, so a truth to it, I would say. And when you see it linguistically, and as it's been done with Korean culture, there's a reason why it works that way. And it's a movie that's for the mature, people that live life, that have had relationships, and those past relationships and past lives that we might not have wanted to say goodbye to. But at some point you do say goodbye to it, or you get a second chance to say goodbye. Some of us never get that second chance, right? It really got me at the end. And it's a beautiful story about Korean culture, linguistics, and relationships in life that we have, and how we grow and move on. And I think that's, my children didn't get it. They didn't really, maybe why I don't get Barbie, I don't know. But I told them, I think this is one, guys, where you have to live life, and you have to have had enough relationships in your life to be able to identify with the characters in the movie, and see the beauty of it. One thing that really, let me see here. Yeah, they didn't get anything for editing. I'm wondering about photography, and I'll get to some of those offshoots later, like cinematography. See, El Conde's really beautiful flick that's nominated for cinematography, and I think Past Lives was overlooked here. The photography, the cinematography, the editing in this movie was phenomenal. I mean, my daughter's into painting and stuff like that. And I said, I feel like I'm watching a painting, and she said, Monet. And one of the particular scenes I did realize, wow, that is a Monet. But more than that, the editing, the montage was incredible. Sometimes I think the Academy doesn't see things for some reason, or focuses too much on the obvious, cinematography nominees. And this is one that I think was underrated for its visual, visceral, stimulating, beautiful to watch. The camera work, it had a 70s. I think we're going back to that with having gone through all the CGI, this 70s zoom lens coming in, and people in certain recognizable backgrounds of New York or even Korea, and how they use that camera work and lighting and natural lighting, as well as editing, was phenomenal. I'm surprised it's not nominated for that. Okay. Where I think, as I'm getting back down to my final Best Picture nominations, other things that are offshoots of mine, like, sound or visual effects. I think Oppenheimer can take some of that. I know Napoleon got really strong criticism for its lack of historical accuracy. But, in terms of visual effects, it likely could win. I think Chris Nolan is a genius when it comes to sound. I don't think he'll lose there. He's won the best sound effects before for Interstellar. I think he's got it in the bag for this one. That was a really amazing thing to experience. The film was the sound and the timing of it, right, with some of the visuals. Poor Things. Wow. I was talking to a colleague of mine who just was like, that's one of those films the Academy might nominate, but it's so avant-garde, artistic, and controversial in a way, if you will. I mean, it's really a very graphic film sexually. I know there's a reason for that. I don't think that story could be told in the message it's giving without it being that. But it's one that I just think the Academy will shy away from, even in 2024, to give that Best Picture. Or it might get an Oscar for some other things, being photography. The photography was incredible in that. The use of the different lenses, from bird eyes to wide angle lenses, was incredible. And since Past Lives didn't get nominated for that, if Poor Things does win, I'm cool with it. Yeah. The last one, Zone of Interest. My God. Intense, very intense in a very subtle way. And while, most Holocaust movies show you the horrific graphic nature of what the Holocaust was, this movie actually shows you the intimate personal lives of the Nazis, and in particular, a family that had a house just behind Auschwitz. And it was mind blowing, actually. I think here this could be the biggest contender to Chris Nolan for sound, Oppenheimer, because some of the elements of that film were these like this giant droning, hounding sound of the stacks of if you were to incinerate anywhere from 500 to 1,000, or on average 700 people a day, and in this case the Jewish race. That's a massive amount of energy and fire and fumes and smoke and ashes that are seen in the movie. And they've shown this before where ashes would land on everyday items with the surrounding towns. But to be that close and have a home near, let's say like Auschwitz, in this case of the zone of interest, of the constant humming sound of them burning, in the incinerators is eerie. And while you don't ever see it, the violent acts and the people screaming and going through torture or pain or being executed are heard, because their home and villa was right on the other side of the walls, right? While they're living a luxurious life and enjoying themselves in the swimming pool. The sound there might be the biggest competitor to Oppenheimer. I mean, and then you do have the other movies, like the action movies like Mission Impossible, but I don't think it can come in and steal the Oscar from Oppenheimer. I think the only true contender for sound would be, in this case, The Zone of Interest. Let's see. I've gone over why I think American Fiction will win the screenplay. Let's see. I haven't seen the shorts, believe it or not. Oh no, I did see one short, and I'm almost always sold on this director, Wes Anderson's The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Wow. It was, you felt this is Roald Dahl reading you the book. That's how it felt, I'll say. Until I see some of the other shorts, I can't really say there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wes Anderson wins. As much as he's a feature-length film director, he's done shorts over the year, and he's amazing. And any chapter from any one of his films could easily win, right? The Oscar. I know there's some original songs. I could see Barbie winning that. I don't know if like John Baptiste will win for It Never Went Away. I think that's a clever idea that he was in his own movie. We have John Williams up in the musical score for Indiana Jones, which is always near and dear to my heart. But I think in terms of original score, I'm going to go out here on a limb. Killers of Flower Moon. Whether or not Martin Scorsese he wins the Best Picture, Robbie Robertson of the band, which was also featured at their last concert at the Winterland in San Francisco on The Last Waltz, a 35 millimeter documentary when 35 millimeter documentaries just weren't done. Martin Scorsese got Robbie Robertson, rest in peace, descanse en paz, before he passed away, to do the original score for Killers of Flower Moon. And Robbie Robertson's has native American blood in him from Canada. I've learned that through watching some of the documentaries on him in the last year. And I thought that was a beautiful original score. And John Williams, eat your heart out. I'm going for Robbie Robertson. Makeup. Here's an interesting thing. While nominated for Best Foreign Film, you could look at Barbie. You could look at some of the other movies like Maestro to get Leonard Bernstein out of Bradley Cooper. But one of the movies I am convinced will win the Best Foreign Film is La Sociedad de la Nieve, The Society of Snow. And they are nominated for Best Makeup. And just the fact of how they recreated the extraordinary story that happened to ordinary people in the Andes in 1973 when Uruguayan rugby team was stranded in the Andes and had to turn to cannibalism and survived 3 months up there without a source of food. is incredible, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually win the best makeup. Let's see. Yeah, Martin Scorsese, Thelma Schumacher, likely to win, right? For editing, might be Oppenheimer. Actually, no, I'll go out on this. Poor Things, definitely. If they, they got to give Poor Things an Oscar here. I mean, you don't have to do anything, but if they're gonna shy away from what that movie's about, and I really don't want to spoil that one, but it is extremely sexually graphic, so be prepared. Look at imdb.com, parental guide, before you pop popcorn and watch that with your younger family members or friends. But Poor Things, the camera work, the photography, the editing, hands down, should go to Poor Things. Whether or not they'll get it, they are in the running with Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon. Must be. I'll be disappointed if Poor Things doesn't at least get the film editing right. I, believe it or not, haven't seen the documentaries this year, and I hadn't last year, so I'm excited to see. I'm just glad I get to learn about these documentaries, whether they be shorts or feature lengths, and I want to watch them, and I'll probably get to them afterwards, and maybe do a singular video on one of them. Okay, directing. While I think American Fiction should win the best picture, whether or not it will. I mean, I think the second or third place, or the next runner-ups after American Fiction, would likely be Killers of Flower Moon or Oppenheimer or Zone of Interest. And I don't think they'll give it to Poor Things or Anatomy of a Fall. But, Zone of Interest does talk about the Holocaust, which is very important, and Hollywood does often honor that. Oppenheimer in a way too, right? But if you look at truly what a director has to do, and I think creating the Osage in that time period, Martin Scorsese is amazing as a director. It's just, how can he turn these films out decade after decade, year after year? But that said, if I really were to think of the energy, creativity, and amazing effort to bring a film to life, Oppenheimer. I think Chris Nolan is a genius, and so is Martin Scorsese, don't get me wrong, but the amount of work to recreate an atomic bomb, that element leading up to there, and the whole subsequent story afterwards was phenomenal. So I at least see Christopher Nolan getting the best director, hopefully, eventually. Costume design, definitely. I could see it going to Killers of Flower Moon. Beautiful to recreate that time period and everything that people wore. Although that said, you have this avant-garde Poor Things. That might be another way to recognize Poor Things without giving them the best picture, because it deals with such uncomfortable graphic scenes for some. I did like that movie quite a bit. It even made me laugh at points. But Barbie could sneak in here, right? They really could. I've given you my cinematography vote. Animated, oh my Lord. My kids say Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We shall see. We really haven't seen many other ones, and that's the only one I've seen, and it was visually beautiful. Reminded me of Ryan, the Canadian short animated film that talks about the 1970s nominee from Canada, Ryan, and I think it was Ryan Larkin, that did these really amazing moving images and colorful with color theory and almost hallucinogenic like, but that was probably because he was taking hallucinogenics and later succumbed to addiction and alcoholism and was living in a homeless shelter, and it was a docu-animated piece. My daughter was keen to notice because I'd shown her that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse really kind of might have been influenced by it, right? And here we get down to some, while not the best picture nominees because I've given you that, let's look at the actors, okay, and actresses. I said Emily Blunt, overlooked. I definitely could see her winning it, but at the same time, if I had to look at another actress in the supporting role, Jodie Foster in Nyad was really good, and that movie was just beautiful to watch. I suspect The Holdovers can sneak in here. That was a very beautiful movie that touched me too and made me emotional. So I'm uncertain here, but those are my ideas of how that will play out. I could see Annette Bening winning for Best Actress, and Nayad again, the true story of this of Nayad who swam, you know, from Cuba to Miami. Incredible story. But I'm going to go with my intuition here in my heart. Leonard Bernstein's story, right? And Carey Mulligan in it is one of the only roles out of all the actresses that made me cry. And his Leonard Bernstein's wife died of cancer, and it is grueling to watch that time in the film. And I was tearing up and bawling. Her performance did that to me, and that's when I go with my gut feeling. You know, I'm not voting, I'm not part of the Academy, but I thought that was the best out of, and I've seen all of these actresses act. I thought Carey Mulligan stole the show. She affected me emotionally, and it was just poignant and beautiful. For the supporting role of men, many people are saying Robert De Niro again comes back with one of the best performances of his career. We shall see. I thought Robert Downey Jr. was out of this world in Oppenheimer. So, you know, my kids are all about Mark Ruffalo, but I'm going to go with Robert Downey Jr. I mean, wow. I forgot Iron Man was on the screen. I believe this senator out of Wyoming, right? And was sold. So I go with, again, my gut feeling on that. And that's, to me, the best performance, right, for supporting actor. But then again, we'll see who the Academy votes on and wins that. Now, as I said, Maestro nominated for Best Picture might not necessarily win. I will tell you that I think definitely Bradley Cooper, out of all the Best Actor nominees, should win for being Leonard Bernstein. My God, forgot I was looking at American Sniper, forgot I was looking at The Hangover, A Star is Born, whatever. You know, he owned it. He was Leonard Bernstein. Uncanny. And I would say if he doesn't get the Oscar, I think they got it wrong. But then again, he's up against Paul Giamatti, Cillian Murphy, Jeffrey Wright. And while I think American Fiction should win Best Picture, I don't always think that the Best Picture has the Best Actor. And here I would give it to Bradley Cooper. So let's see what my predictions are for the 96th Academy Award nominations tomorrow, March 10th. And I will do, as I always do, a recap afterwards to, you know, go over if I was right, if I was wrong, if I agreed. Like much like last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once didn't win Best Costume Design. It was Black Panther. They totally dropped the ball there. And what was the budget Black Panther had to do that best costume compared to the organic process that Everything Everywhere All at Once allowed to take place in order for costuming? Things like that. So I'll be back to tell you guys all about that. And get out, watch the Oscars tomorrow, maybe make a little party around it. And I shall be back. Hi, it's Buck the Movie Buff back here because I just returned from the movies, and I forgot to mention something that I'd overlooked when discussing musical score, and to prove to you that I'm Buck the Movie Buff. Buck. Okay. Just got back from seeing Dune. While I was watching that, I forgot to mention a composer this year that I think could be a contender against Robertson, and that's Ludwig Göransson, who composed and conducted the music for the movie Oppenheimer, and he's an up and comer and brilliant. It was wonderful music. Now that I think about it, but I think Hans Zimmer's got it in the bag for next year. Wow, Dune 2 better than Dune 1. That does happen sometimes, not often, with the sequel, especially in what I believe will be a trilogy. But I've already begun to think so far for the 97th Oscar Awards, Dune has got so much in the bag. Just came out in the cinema, so get out and see it. But we're looking at visual effects, sound effects, go figure, photography, cinematography, music, as I said, by Hans Zimmer. All of this lead up to a Best Director, 97th Oscar Award, and maybe even Best Picture. But there's a lot of time between now and then. But being the movie buff I am, I just got back from seeing Dune and thought I'd add this quick little short clip on. And for some reason, hearing Hans Zimmer's music composed for Dune 2, I thought of Ludwig Göransson, and I thought, man, I didn't give him a shout out. And I think while I still want Robbie Robertson for Killers of Flower Moon to win, that could be a definite contender and potential win. instead of Robbie. Rest in peace. Descanse en paz.